So Avine, the company that I'm one of the co-founders of and the current CEO, was started almost 10 years ago now. And we can talk maybe another time about how to get market timing right and when you start a company. It's probably a different topic of discussion, but at any rate, the company was founded. We founded it to give users more control over their personal information on the web. And this was around the time that Facebook was doing its IPO and everybody was very gung-ho about social networking and data sharing and social everything. And I had recently been an investor, an associate sort of level person at SoftBank Venture Capital, and I had seen a lot of technology trends kind of come and go and get very popular and then unpopular. And I felt like this whole, in 2010, the whole idea of sharing everything in our lives, either through Facebook or other technologies, was something that was bound to need to be corrected. And so that was one of the reasons why myself and a couple much smarter technical guys from MIT started the company, and we felt like there needed to be tools that were easy enough to use for people to better control their information on the web. So that's a little bit about the history of the company, and we've come quite a long way over the last almost decade, and I think it's finally a more interesting time to talk about privacy and control of your data today than it was when we started it, and probably the most interesting time for our particular area of the business. So be interested to see if you all have personal questions or see trends in this area in your companies. But at any rate, I'm going to focus a little bit about, so that's sort of the introduction. I'm going to talk about the kinds of information that's out there, which companies get it, who sells it, how are people finding information, what you can do to protect yourself or employees, that kind of thing. We have a couple different products. I'm going to focus the conversation around DeleteMe, but I will talk about another product that we have that fits into it. So what DeleteMe is a service that goes out and finds your personal information on the web, and basically finds wherever it's being collected, sold by data brokers. And typically, if you put in your name and for example, your address or the city you live in, the top results on Google these days will include things like your LinkedIn profile and your professional profiles, things that you probably want to be found online easily. And then they'll also include a whole group of listings from data brokers that say things like, hey, check out Stacy and Jerry's criminal records, buy their whole profile for $7, that kind of thing. And these are the data brokers that we focus on finding and removing people's information from. And that's been really the fastest growing business side of our business. We have a different set of products and services for consumers only, but DeleteMe's gotten very popular amongst companies, employees, and executives as well. Really for folks that want a simple way to monitor where their information is and create a lower profile about themselves on the web. So why are people signing up for it? These are the kind of reasons. But really, I think we have there's two reasons why we find that our customers want a service like this. One is they have a specific problem. It might be that they're the CEO of a company and there's an irate customer or a former employee that feels like they were treated unfairly. They have a problem and they kind of start Googling for you. And in that scenario, whether it leads to just sort of a gentle email harassment or some phone calls at inopportune times, or even somebody visiting your house, it's just something that nobody needs. And so reducing the ability to for individuals to do that is something that people find valuable. So there's a bucket of people that value the DeleteMe service because they have a specific issue. And then there's another group of people that simply want to invest in having a lower profile of information easily accessible on the web about them. And that group signs up. Our service runs we run the service all year. We deliver you 4 different reports every year. We show you exactly where your information was found, exactly where it was removed. And you don't have to trust us. You can go check it by Googling yourself. And so, there's this other growing group that is beginning to understand the importance of sort of maintaining a lower profile, having less of your data available out there. And one of the reasons to do this isn't simply to protect against generic harms, but the data brokers sell data to a lot of different third parties, and those third parties can really are never revealed, and it's hard to sort of visualize the harm that they can create. But it can be anything from dating sites to healthcare providers, to insurance, to employers doing background checks, that sort of thing. So just generally having a lower profile of data that's easily available out there and for sale is a driving factor behind some of our customers' decision making. So what data is out there about you? This is another area that's growing, sort of unsurprisingly, as we give out more data in our daily lives. The amount of data that's scraped and collected about us by data brokers is growing. When we started the service, we were seeing we could find about 1,300 different pieces of data on somebody across all the different data brokers on an average search over a year. Now we're finding over 2,500 different pieces of data. So the number of data points, if you will, that these data brokers are able to collect without our consent or permission, and then assemble into a nicely collated profile and sell both to businesses and individuals, has more than doubled over the last 5 years. So it's just a symptom or an effect of the tremendous amount of time, especially during COVID, that we're all spending online, which is generating just more and more data about us that's more and more easily connected to our identity. So so a lot of this information, is stuff that Stacy started talking about. Basic, what's your phone number, what's your email, but it goes deeper. Sometimes we see, your license plate, your automotive data, photos of your home, estimate of your net worth based on your home price and your employment record. They're just getting better and better at correlating data, which is unsurprising because that's what technology does. It gets cheaper, faster, and better. And the unfortunate side effect has been that data brokers have more data about each and every one of us. So that's and of course, why do we exist? In a perfect world, this DeleteMe service wouldn't really exist. Like, we'd have control of our own data. We'd be able to tell data brokers easily to stop selling it if we wanted them to. but it doesn't work that way in the real world, at least not yet. They make it pretty hard to opt out of these kind of practices, and that's frankly why we exist. We actually have a guide on our website, publicly available on the main menu, that tells individuals that have potentially more time than money, exactly how to remove this information and opt yourself out of all these data brokers. We make no secrets about it, but it takes time. On the app, we believe to cover 100 data brokers all year probably take the average person over 40 hours of work throughout the year. So we just make that easier. We have a business process automation platform. It is not 100% automated. We do not do deals with these data brokers on the back end. So we use a mixture of privacy experts as well as technology to kind of make the removal and monitoring process super efficient. And that's what we've built and continue to perfect on the technical side of our SaaS business. So that's that's a little bit. And who are these guys? Some names you probably recognize. There's some bigger companies publicly traded. There's some smaller ones, and we focus on a list of specific ones that is changing, and we add to throughout the year, all under a single subscription, annual subscription that we offer. So that's a little bit about DeleteMe. You can sign up for it at joindeleteme.com, and there's different plans reflecting whether you want to join with a company and a group of employees, whether you want to join with your family, husband and spouse, for example, or as an individual. You get reports that look like this. Here's where we found your information. Here's exactly what we found. Here's exactly what was removed. That's sort of the basics about what we do and our product. I think I was talking about why we exist, and the fact that you can do this for free if you have the time and you're willing to go through the processes. One of the things that is happening, and since most of you are located in California, I'll just talk about it for a second, is that consumers are getting more legal rights over their data. Finally, here in the US, this has been the case in Europe for several years under the GPRA there, and you're starting to see legislation pop up all over the world. This is not. This is a trend that is global. Even China, amazingly enough, last week or the week before, passed some kind of law relating to how Chinese individuals' personal information can be used. So you're seeing this in Brazil, in Europe, in China, and finally in the US, at least in a few states, California being the leader. We just passed a new privacy law in California called the CPRA, which updates the former law called the CCPA. If some of you run businesses, you may be familiar with this, and you think of it as a sort of a compliance pain in the rear and challenge. On the one side, businesses have to do more now to respond to people that have their data, consumers and customers and so forth. On the other hand, it does give consumers more control over the ability to look at what data companies have about them and how it is accessed, sold, and so forth. And so we pay very close attention to this trend and are trying to build tools and capabilities to help consumers and employees do this more efficiently and comply with a growing set of laws. I think there's at least a 50% chance that under the Biden administration, we'll see this kind of thing turn into some kind of national privacy law at the federal level, which would make a lot of people happy in the sense that it would be easier to understand, comply with, and deal with one set of regulations. So look out for that sometime in the next in the next administration, hopefully. So that's sort of generally a flyby of what I wanted to cover. Stacy, I don't know what our time frame is, but I know it's almost 9:30 Pacific. So tell me what kind of time constraints we're under, and anyone please jump in with questions.
Yeah, we have about 30 minutes, still remaining, so we could certainly jump in. I've got a whole bank of questions as well that your partner in crime over there, Stephen, provided us. So we have some support there. But if anybody has some questions they want to jump in, feel free.
Well, let me just say one more thing, if I can, before we get into the questions, which is DeleteMe is one of our products, and I mentioned we have a couple different ones. The other product that we offer, just to kind of give you guys the complete picture of what we set out to build as a company dedicated to protecting online privacy, is a product called Blur. And Blur and DeleteMe are meant to work together in a sense. And Blur is something that you put on your browser, your Chrome or Edge browser or whatever, and it sits there and helps you control the information that you're giving out when you fill in forms or create accounts, sites, or do online shopping. And what it does is it sort of acts as a password manager, if any of you use a password manager, except it adds a layer of privacy to that user interface. So instead of asking you if you want to create a strong password for a particular site that's unique, the Blur software will also create a new email address for you, and a new phone number, and a new credit card. And all of those credentials can be made unique and filled into forms of third-party accounts that you might not have a tremendous amount of trust in using. So if you create a new account, and this is one of the sources where data brokers get their information. Hey, we want to sign up for something. Somebody wants to shop for something. They often will buy those lists from other e-commerce merchants and so forth. So Blur is a tool designed to give you sort of disposable, or what I prefer to call what we call masked credentials. They're working email addresses, working phone numbers, working credit cards that sort of map back privately to a dashboard that forwards to your real personal credentials. And so that's sort of the other tool that we have and that we built, and we spent a lot of product time and effort at the company in. And so I just wanted to share that in terms of two things. One, we have and continue to believe in a larger vision where it's not necessarily about dropping out of the technical world that we all live in today. It's about being able to control the information that we're giving out with better options for people, instead of share your information with us and we'll do whatever we want with it, or leave. Those are very black and white options, and we think there should be a bunch of nuance in there. And so that's what we've tried to build, this product that enables people to share more selectively and control their data more efficiently. DeleteMe is there to make sure that at times we can't all control every piece of data that we have. So DeleteMe is there to kind of look after and clean up all year what data is already out there about you. So that's a little
Rob,
bit.
You got a couple of questions coming in. So what about the dark web, right? That folks have said they've been to the dark web with other cyber consultants and was shocked about what's already out there. Isn't the data already compromised in the dark web?
So the dark web is an area which, it really didn't, it's a great term, it's a great marketing term, similar to identity protection, which I've spent some time in. It didn't really exist until we had so many data breaches. And what happened is all of the data from all of these different data breaches became so big and so accessible, it turned into what they call the dark web. So you can, use a custom VPN and browser and go find a bunch of this personal information that's out there. And so the dark web has this information for sale. You can often buy it using cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. And for better or for worse, it is almost impossible to get information removed from there. So, I would say, these dark web monitoring solutions, which we haven't, which we as a company haven't invested in, are interesting in that they can show you if your email or your social security number, for example, is on the dark web, but you can pretty much rest assured they are there, because most of us have received data breach notifications in the last several years, probably a handful or more of them. Equifax lost all of our data a few years ago. So the data is out there. The most interesting thing about the dark web, and if the question is, gee, how do I protect myself if my information's on the dark web, is to make sure that you look for passwords there. Because if they have your passwords there, you need to change them.
I muted myself, my apologies. How fearful should we be as individuals? Is there an insurance for individuals, or is there a plan through you? And should we use this alongside Experian or instead of?
It's a good question. I don't think there's, I'm probably not supposed to say this, but I don't think there's any need to be fearful, unless you're in a particular category where you're subject to real threats or harassment. For example, we protect a lot of judges. And I don't know if you all read in the media in the last several months, there's been some horrifying stories about people coming to judges' homes, personal homes. They find their home address and sort of try to take revenge or whatever on them, and in some cases successfully. So they're a special category. And law enforcement, we had a bunch of protesters. We had a bunch of people sign up during the protests earlier this year, both on the side of the protesters and on the side of law enforcement. So I would say there's special examples where in our lives, there are reasons to really be fearful. But in general, I think for most of us, I wouldn't use the word fearful. I'd use the word, hey, it's better, if $150 or $200 a year isn't the biggest expenditure on your docket, it's beginning to, at least, I'm biased, but make a lot of sense to take basic precautions around how your data is being manipulated, sold, and used without your consent, without your permission. It's kind of cheap insurance for a whole bunch of things that we don't really have access to. So my answer would be probably no need to be scared, but it's a good insurance policy, and it is quite different than identity theft protection, which is the second part of the question, I think. Identity protection does credit monitoring. It monitors some of this dark web stuff, but this is really in a different category. We're trying to build the next generation, or a different category of protection that really relates to your privacy, rather than protecting your identity after the horse has left the barn.
By the way, Stacy, I thought if I'd just give some input. So for those of you who think, I feel like I'm fairly protected, but not to this extent. And just as an FYI, I get letters every day from around the world to my home address, because people can find it on pipl.com. and I get hockey cards with a request from Russia, Yugoslavia, Canada, all over the place. And it's amazing to me. So I started asking these people, how the heck did you find my address? And they said, oh, it's out there. All the traders and collectors share your address. And so it's quite interesting to see how much of this data is shared around. And if they have a picture of you and your name and your address and everything, it doesn't make you feel secure if somebody chose to come visit.
Well, and the kind of follow on with that, you know, to follow up with the dark web conversation, there was the following question around, if it's impossible to remove from the dark web, then what good does it do to get the data from the data brokers? You know, why wouldn't the data brokers just go to the dark web to get the information?
Yeah, well, it's a fair question. We get it a lot. You know, why quit smoking if I've been smoking for 20 years? The answer that I would give is, one, you know, most of the data brokers that we cover, not all of them, but most of them are US based, and they're real companies. PIPL that Jerry mentioned is among them. And they do have to operate, they have general counsels, they have to operate in a legally compliant way, hopefully ever more so as legislation is passed. So they can't actually just go buy databases on the dark web that have been dumped there by hackers. Look, privacy is a complicated topic, and it's always been very, very expensive and very difficult to be anonymous. And it's only gotten more so. But there's a difference between being anonymous and being protected and having a modicum of privacy and security when you go online. If it's super easy to Google for your home address and Jerry's, whatever kids' names and information, you are more exposed than if that information is only accessible by somebody going through a 12-step set of software protocols to access something on the dark web where searches don't work very well, and then they have to pay money for access to databases and so forth. So there's just a level of degrees of difficulty that is part of protecting your privacy in the modern era. And nothing's perfect. Our service is not perfect. I'll say it again, it's not perfect. Nobody's gonna be able to delete you from the internet. You know, we get these customers from time to time that we need to set their expectations and educate them, because they really believe that they can be easily deleted from the internet for $100, and you know, it's false. You have to understand that the way modern security works and cybersecurity, whether you're protecting yourself, your company, your family, whatever, is to provide sort of a layered set of defenses, because nothing is perfect.
Yeah. What do you think about the people who go totally off social media? Are they really hidden from the world?
You know, I think I have a Facebook account. I don't post there much. I think that if you're careful about what you share on social media with the expectation that it is truly public information, no matter which settings you go set, I think it's fine. It's a great way to keep people connected and share photos and sort of have that ever-present high school reunion. But so I don't think there's a need to necessarily quit social media, so to speak. I do think people have to be increasingly careful, because, for example, if you have Facebook open and you log into other accounts, Facebook will suck that information in and add it to your profile, and do it in a way that is super efficient but is invisible to you. Even to the extent, I mean, I'm sure it's not as in vogue anymore, but when you click the like button on another site, whether your Facebook account was open or not, that would tell Facebook where you've been and what you were doing, and part of our product, Blur, blocks those calls from happening from your browser or from your phone back to the data ad tech network or the third party that is collecting it. But just like deleting your information, the social networking thing is complicated. I'm not here to tell you to leave social networks, but you should expect that whatever information you share there not only is public information, but that the other places that you go and the activities that you do online, if you're a regular social media user, will also be shared back with your social media accounts and correlated to them.
How much of a danger do you consider a company like Facebook to be? Getting really controversial.
I think Facebook is extremely good at what they do. I think Google is extremely good at what they do. And they are amassing a huge amount of information. And for the most part, I consider it innocuous in the sense that, you know, by getting better information about things we like to buy is just better advertising. On the other hand, I think that these companies have gotten way too big, and they've vertically and horizontally expanded to the point where it's impossible to know the depth of data that exists about all of us on those platforms now, whether we have opted in, so to speak, consciously or not. And when you think about the data they have and the speed at which they're custom developing their artificial intelligence engines, that's where I think things start to get a little bit scary, not in the sense that we're necessarily going to see some greater intelligent robot taking over the world in the next decade, but rather that a lot of the algorithms that we don't see that are designed to make decisions about everything from healthcare to insurance to costs to things that have to deal with the cities that we live in, or court legal systems, are going to be fed with the data that these social networks are collecting, and those algorithms, those AI-powered algorithms, will be using a lot of the data that they currently have in ways that are not in our control. So from that perspective, I think that they are very dangerous.
Sorry, muted myself again. One of the distinctions that that Steve was kind of asking here, just about like hearing the difference between legal and illegal data. It sounds like Abbeam protects legal data from collection, but the dark web has got the illegal hackers. Is that a good understanding of that distinction?
It is. It is. And frankly, a lot of the data that DeleteMe is finding and removing is what's called public records. It's perfectly legal under current US laws for these companies to go get it and put it into a profile and resell it, because it's public record. It's really backs into the First Amendment. And the problem with that, in my opinion, it's a good example of where law and technology are just on completely different timelines in life, is that getting a public record for somebody used to involve a significant cost. Just like going to the dark web and getting illegal information about somebody involves a significant cost today. You used to have to go down to the courthouse, wait in line, ruffle through files that you had to get, and then go Xerox or copy down the information from that public record. And that naturally imposed a barrier on people's ability to access it. What's happened with technology is, over the last 10 years in particular, in the US in particular, we've allowed these companies to make that as easy as Googling. And Google has been happy to accept billions of dollars in advertising fees from the people search industry to make sure that the over 10% of searches that are for other people on Google is monetized. And so all of that, even though it backs into public legal records, I think is problematic.
How accurate is the information on the data broker sites, do you think?
If you ask our customers and you look at the reports that we deliver to them, it's extraordinarily accurate, and it's getting more accurate and more detailed.
Wow.
Can I ask a question real quick?
I was just going to ask about your blur question too, but I wasn't sure what you meant.
Well, no, well, that one, but I do international house of goods moving for Department of Defense and the Embassy, Department of State. And one of the things I think that's so frustrating is that Customs and Border Protection sells all the import data of all these individuals, all their information, their address and everything. At the same time, the Department of Defense requires that we protect the private individuals. And so we can submit individually to Customs and Border Protection to stop that information on a one-off basis, each shipper. But in many times shipping is only 5 days. And by the time we put the request in, it's too late. The data is already out. I mean, do you think that the government will ever get in line with selling some of these things where they're requiring that you protect it, but at the same time, the government's issuing it out at the same time?
I think it's a great question. And, you know, it probably doesn't surprise you, John, that, you know, various state, even at the state level, not at the Customs and Border Protection level, they're busy playing these games where even DMV offices in different states will sell all the information after you go register a motor vehicle to data brokers because they need money. So, you know, do I think that their act will get cleaned up? I think that a federal privacy law will help, but I see no particular reason to believe that government is going to magically become super efficient and smart. Maybe it's just the little Republican inside of me that's speaking now, but I think we're going to continue to see more and more strange dichotomies between what the government is doing with data and what the government is trying to protect.
And my other question, Stacey, that you mentioned, so you mentioned the product Blur that you guys sell. Is that BLUR? Is that how you spell it? Is it blur.com, or what is the?
We haven't been so lucky on URLs. The easiest way to get it is just go to our corporate website, abin.com, and from there you can, abin.com, and from there you can get to either of those products.
And my last question, as I'm kind of hearing the difference between the dark web and the public records and all that stuff, I think for me and my analogy, and I would like you to kind of either confirm it or that, is that, you know, we all have cars and we lock the doors when we get out and we take the keys with us, but by leaving all that stuff there, it's kind of like leaving your car unlocked and your keys in it. So even though a true professional can unlock your car and start your car and steal it, it still prevents 95% of the normal people from doing it. Is that kind of what you're saying with the other?
Yeah, I think it's a good analogy. It's a good analogy. I'd say we'd probably go a step further, and we're sort of like LoJack in the sense that if they take some information from they take some stuff from your car, we're going to monitor it and find them. But effectively, yeah. The professionals out there, whether that you call them the dark web hackers or whatever, are highly likely, if they have the time, to be able to go do some damage. And then that's true for an individual's information. It's true for a corporate network and so forth. So you know, security is economics is a popular cliche in the cybersecurity industry. If you have unlimited time and money, you can probably hack anything. But it makes it, to your point about not leaving stuff in your car, not leaving unlocked, 95 plus, maybe even 99% of the low-hanging fruit is just putting in place a few best practices with your data. And you know, we're biased, but we think, you know, DeleteMe is one of those best practices that you can avail yourself of.
Why do large companies use your service, Rob?
Well, I can talk about different categories of large companies, but I think for protecting employees' information, companies are beginning to, and it's early days, but companies are beginning to understand that a lot of the hacks that are successful are not just technical, somebody finding a smart way to penetrate their network security, but social engineering. So somebody will call up somebody will do a bunch of research using these data brokers on their employees, and then they'll call them up as somebody else in the company and ask for access, or I forgot my password to the VPN, or any number of little tricks. And the more they use detailed personal information, and including corporate information, hey, I know you worked here, and I know you had this address and this phone number, and I just started my job. There's all kinds of tricks that they're playing, and they are much more persuasive when they use detailed personal information for these social phishing attacks. So companies are beginning to understand that is a weak link in their security, and so that's one reason why they're investing in sort of the purchase of a DeleteMe service on behalf of their employees. Another reason is just to provide employees a benefit. Hey, you've got pet insurance, you've got this benefit, you've got that benefit. Here's something nice that you can do for you and your family. It just gives you more peace of mind throughout the year. And then the last reason would be executives in those larger companies as a special class. Executives and board members, some of you I'm sure are both of those. They're in a special class. They are more out there. They're more searched. They're more publicly interesting for a variety of people. And so companies are investing in specifically protecting their executive teams and their leadership teams.
Do you have corporate plans that are cheaper per seat than individuals, or is it same for all?
No, but we have corporate plans that are more expensive.
Gotcha.
That's awesome.
Good answer.
All right, one last fun question for you. To what degree is your company involved in politics, especially around scrubbing comments that might be used against someone, such as confirmation hearings or things like that?
Yeah, we get a lot of, so first of all, back to the question, are Facebook and Google dangerous? They're spending now, I think if you look at the lobbying dollars that they're spending now versus 5 years ago, it is literally a 10x the amount. So they've gotten very heavily involved in politics, and privacy is going to be one of the defining fights these companies are trying to influence by political lobbying. We have, we're still effectively a startup in terms of our ability to spend on lobbyists. That said, we do actively work on legislation, and we actively work with the FTC on giving them information about specific bad actors and practices that we think that don't comply with either the spirit or letter of the law. So those are the ways we were part of the team that was advocating the CPRA, because even though all these laws are imperfect and in a lot of cases contain blatant stupidity, we believe, and we're biased, we believe we need to push more legislation to get to a place where we can have a federal, a responsible sort of federal level conversation about what protecting consumer data means in the 21st century. So that's sort of like how we're working with the political aspect of this, which I think is which is an absolute requirement. You can't just solve this problem with technology and it's not going away. It's only getting worse. So we need a combination of technology and regulation in order to sort of bring an equilibrium back that makes sense. Did I miss part of the question?
No, I think that was great.
Got it.
Yeah, nailed it. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Rob. It's been a pleasure to have you. And, I think obviously through the questions here, I didn't use one of your pre-written questions. So that tell you the interest level from the folks here today. So really appreciate that. Your information's been set up here and we'll be sure to share it with everybody. If anybody has any questions or would like to reach out or contact him after the fact, please do. And we appreciate your contribution today.
Well, thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Please feel free to reach out directly to me if you have any further questions or or suggestions or ideas. Would really love any feedback. And again, thanks for having me.